Alright folks, welcome back to another Rocky Mountain Anglers fly tying tutorial. Today we are going to be looking forward to spring a little bit. It's February right now and it's cold. It's been winter for a long time and I think a lot of us are ready for those temps to start warming up a little bit. I know I am. And you know, I like to think that if it's February, it's basically March, and if it's March, that means it's time for spring baetis. So in honor of that, I'm going to tie for you today a favorite springtime baetis pattern. This is going to be Juan Ramirez's Slim Shady 5.0 baetis nymph. This is a fly that's sort of been around for a long time. I believe in its current form going on 10 years and even earlier iterations before that. And you look at it and it's really not hard to see why it works so well. We've got just a real nice slender profile here. Not a lot of frills going on, just a nice little hint of flash up on top. And it's a joy to tie as well, really. A super efficient use of materials, not a difficult pattern at all. So yeah, I would absolutely recommend tying yourselves up a few of these and carrying them in your boxes this season. I've sort of been excited to do this one for a little while. I actually got to have a real nice conversation with Mr. Ramirez about this fly. So big shout out to him for being willing to chat with me and answer some of my questions. That was much appreciated. So yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it with our materials. So we're going to be doing a version here today that is fairly true to the original. And our hook choice is going to be a Tiemco 200R. And this is a size 18 I've got here in the vise. 18, 20, probably my go-to sizes, especially for the spring. Remember that springtime baetis are generally a size or even a couple sizes larger than fall baetis. So, you know, I know 18, 20 doesn't always sound particularly large, but really just by way of using this 200R, which is a 3X long hook, we're sort of giving it a built-in size boost, and it just works out to be ideal. There are certainly some alternative hook options out there for you. You've got the Arex 531. Mr. Ramirez also uses the Firehole 718. I haven't tried that one out myself, but maybe I'll just have to one of these days. One that I have sort of been messing around with here is this Tiemco 201R. This is sort of the modern evolution of the 200R, and you know, slightly different application, I'd say. This hook is 2X long instead of 3X long, so you are giving up a little bit of length, but it also has a heavy wire, so it's a little bit more of a stout hook. I don't know, it just depends on where you're fishing, I guess. Not better, not worse necessarily, just different. I do hypothesize that these might be good for matching some of the aforementioned smaller fall baetis, you know, down to a size 22 in this hook. I will be trying that out, and I will let y'all know how it goes. So, right, for my thread today, I've got a 14-aught Vivus, and this is the B10 color here. Sort of like a light tan, one of the original colors for this pattern, and still one of the favorites for sure. Of course, you could do this in basically whatever color you like, but if you're looking for a different thread, you could always go with good old 8-aught uni. And speaking of different color options, this uni olive dun is a fantastic one. Absolutely encourage you to try that out. You've also got your UTC 70, and this is the wood duck gold color here. Fairly similar to that Vivus, not exactly the same, but really pretty darn close. This is another flat line thread as well, which is going to be nice. For our tails, we're going to be using black microfibbits. And for the rib, so the ribbing on this fly is actually going to be a slight deviation from the original. What I've got here is mid-stretch rib in brown from Hairline, but the original was tied using one of Mr. Ramirez's own materials, something he calls slim rib. And what that is, it's like a micro round stretch material. It's not hollow like micro tubing, so it doesn't sort of widen out on the hook as you wrap it. Just makes for a real nice slight ribbing effect, especially on smaller flies. But it's super versatile and cool all around. So if you're interested in getting some slim rib, you can send Mr. Ramirez a message, get some from him directly. But this mid-stretch rib is a fairly good substitute, so that's what I'm going to use today. Our wing case and legs are going to be black fluorofibers. For a little bit of flash, I've got some medium holographic tinsel, and this is black. And finally, we're going to be putting a little bit of resin over top of that flash. And for that, I've got some medium viscosity Solarez. Alrighty, I believe that's it for our materials. So let's get right into tying one of these up. So I'll get started here with a new hook in the vise. And I'm just going to start my thread an eye length or so back from the front. We do want to leave ourselves a little bit of open space up there just because we'll need it to tie everything off at the end. And I'm going to come in pretty much straight away here with my tails. So I've got 2 of those microfibbets, and my first job is just to line them up in my fingers. Not always the easiest task in the world, but once you've got those, go ahead and just catch them right there on top. Put a couple turns on them. And now we're going to pull these down to length. So the tail length on this fly, I like to picture about a body length. Me personally, I tend to tie my tails in too long, so I sort of have to be careful of that when I do this, but I'll just say about right there looks good. So once you're happy with that, go ahead and continue wrapping down over everything. You'll also see I'm just holding on to those tails with my material hand. That is just to make sure they don't roll. And I'll take my thread just a little ways down into the bend. And at this point, we can work on lifting and splitting these tails. So to start, I will give my thread a quick counterclockwise turn just to uncord it. And then I'll sneak it around back underneath both of those tails at the same time. And you can see when I pull that forward, it sort of props them up a little bit. And that just makes it so that I can get in there with my thumb, or my thumbnail, and just pinch them forward, and that splits them apart a little bit. So I can start maneuvering them individually into place. And now to actually split these, what I'll do is I'll first come up underneath, put a turn in the middle. That sort of kicks out my near leg. And then to finish, I will continue holding on to that near leg and then come down from the top in between once more. And that turn will sort of catch the far leg and kick it out away from me. So when you come away from that, if you've done it correctly, you should have 2 nicely split tails, like so. That figure 8 technique can be a little challenging. It's still a challenge for me, to be honest with you. It's just one of those things that's not completely intuitive. So just be patient with yourself. Just takes a little bit of practice to master. And then hopefully it just becomes muscle memory. So I just took my thread all the way back up over the rest of those tails, about to where I started it. Took the excess out. And now we're ready to tie in our rib. So I have got myself a little piece of that mid-stretch ribbing here. And this is honestly a small piece, just a couple inches. But this is actually going to tie me a good amount of flies. After we've tied this in and stretched it out, we really don't use much at all, which is pretty darn cool if you ask me. So I just catch that in there with a pinch wrap sort of on my near side. And before I start wrapping all the way down over this, I want to make sure that a couple of things happen. So first of all, I'm going to get a good tight grip on that and just give it a little bit of a stretch. Actually, really not a little bit, a lot of bit of a stretch. It stretches out a lot, so don't be shy. And at the same time, you're going to want to come down over it with some nice tight thread tension turns. And the combination of stretching this all the way out like we are and tying it down nice and solidly is that it basically goes in here with essentially no bulk, and that is really perfect for this sort of application. So I'll just take that all the way down to my tails, start working my way forward a little bit before I release tension on that. And at this point, if you need to flatten your thread out again, go for it. This is going to be our final thread underbody here, so we want it to be nice and smooth. So I'll just run my thread all the way back up, and once I get back to my rib where I tied it in, you can see I left myself kind of a little bit of a long tag end there. And the reason for that is just so I could come in and attempt to pinch it and pull it up a little bit, and then just sneak the very tips of my scissors in there and trim it out. And you can see just the combination of pulling on that a little bit while we cut it means that the butt end just disappears up underneath those thread wraps, which is pretty cool. Just a really nice clean tie-off point. So now we're ready to wrap our rib. So I tied this in on my near side, so I'm going to start by coming over the top, and then I'll just start working my way forward with some nice evenly spaced turns. And once again, I'm putting a lot of thread tension, well, not thread tension, but just stretch tension into this ribbing material. I just want it to lay nice and smoothly and tightly on this body. Gosh, I said evenly spaced. It's an elusive thing. So I'll just take this all the way up to where my thread is hanging, and I can throw it over a couple times. And you can see I don't release tension on that ribbing material until I've got equivalent tension on it with my thread. And that is just to make sure it doesn't come loose and unravel on me. So I put a couple nice tight turns on top of that and then several more in front of it just to lock it down. And now we are ready to trim that out. And start building our wing case. So first thing I'll do is come in with a little piece of that flash, and I'll just catch it in here right on top with the curve facing up. I do want to make sure it lays nice and square on the back of my fly. Go ahead and carefully pull it down to length a little bit if you need. And right on top of that, I'm going to come in with my fluorofiber. So by some fluorofiber, I mean exactly 12 strands of fluorofiber. 12 is the number. We're going to be making our legs out of this in a second. So we're going to have two groups of 6 and 6. Yes, you do want to count them out. I know it can be a little bit of a pain, but it's worth it, trust me. So I just trim those tips off square, then I'll catch them in and pull them down to length. And once I have both of those materials tied in there, I can wrap back over both of them to about where I want my thorax to end. And proportions-wise, that's about 60-40, but you can also use your turns of ribbing as a reference. So I want to make sure I can see at least 6 of those turns in here, wherever I end up. So I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to say about right there should be good. So once I'm happy with that, I will just come back forward, and on this first pass, I'll just carefully cover up all the materials we've got in there. We're going to be using our thorax here, well, excuse me, our thread to build up a little bit of a thorax here. Lots of T words in this video. Thread, thorax, tight, tension, turns. Anyways, we're going to be putting some nice tight tension turns on top of this thorax just to build it up a little bit. And it's not going to take much because most of the bulk we need is already tied in there with our materials. So most of the work I'm doing here is really just to smooth it all off. And I do have to be careful with my tension as I do this, just to make sure my thread doesn't slip. The thoraxes on these bugs in real life are not particularly pronounced, so it's not going to take a ton. We don't want this to be ginormous by any means, but it will be slightly football shaped. And another thing is I can take advantage of the rotary function on my vise just to look at it from all the different angles and make sure I'm not missing any high or low spots. I think I'll call that good. And once you're done, go ahead and end with your thread just behind the hook eye, like so. So now we can go ahead and start pulling everything over. So I'll start with my fluorofiber. I'll just pull it out in one bunch straight over the hook eye. And you want it to lay nice and flat across the back. So I don't know how well you can see that, but just like a back strap. And if you need it to sort of reposition a little bit, you can lift it up underneath that first turn and just maneuver it exactly where you want it before you lock it down. It should look something like that. So now we will split these to make our legs. So I just come in with my bodkin and split those into 2 groups of 6. I got that on the first try. Can you guys tell I've been practicing? I hope so. So I just pulled that first group back on my near side and caught it in with a couple turns. And I'll do the same on my far side. Just pull it back and catch it there. You can sort of take a look at those, make sure they're kicking out how you want on either side. And then pull your flash over top of everything to finish it off. And same as the fluorofiber before, you want to make sure that that lays nice and square over the top, which it is, so I'm happy. I'll tie that off right behind the eye before I pull it back on itself. And just put a couple more turns on top of it to lock it down. And now we're ready for a whip finish. So just give my thread one final counterclockwise spin here. Grab my whip finish tool, and I'm just going to use a handful of turns to smooth everything off. Go ahead and tighten that up. Take out your thread. And that is it for our tying process. So now all that's left is just to clean things up. So I'll start by lifting up my flash and just sneaking my scissors in there, trimming it out. You can see the butt just disappears on top of the wing case. Next up, grab yourself just a Sharpie or any sort of black marker. I'm just going to color this head up a little bit. And all you got to do is just touch it there to the top a few times. That just creates a little bit of blending. So now if you look at it from a top-down view, you'll see the head is black and it blends in with the wing case, but from a bottom view, it is still light colored and it blends in with the thorax. So just makes it look a little nicer. Now go ahead and pull all your legs down, and we're going to put a little bit of resin over top of all that. So I've got my Solarez bottle here, and with the applicator, I can just let a little bit come out. I'll be patient with it here. I don't want it to come out all at once. That looks like a bubble. It is a bubble. There we go. And I'll just start that on top of the flash at the back and let it sort of just work forward over the whole top of that wing case and out on top of our head as well. And it doesn't take a lot here. You know, you want enough to build up a little bit of a bead, but it's not massive. So I think that looks about right. If you need to shape that up with your bodkin, make it look nice and pretty, go ahead, take a little off. There we go. And then to cook that, I'll just give it a couple seconds initially. Let it cool off, and then I'll start up from a distance and slowly bring my light down on it. That just keeps it from cooking too fast there. That's a better way to do it than just frying it from, you know, half an inch away immediately. So cook that for a hot second, and now trim out my legs. I'll just pull them back all up on top and set my scissors in there behind the thorax and just trim them out straight. And another benefit of doing it that way is that now all your fluorofibers are rebundled in a nice new bunch ready for the next fly. So there you have it, folks. That is our finished Slim Shady 5.0. You can see that was not a difficult pattern at all. Really great if you're just starting to fill out a baetis box. Super fun to tie as well. Another thing I wanted to just touch on before I let you go is sort of the offshoots of this fly. And I got to talk about this with Mr. Ramirez a little bit, but there's really some pretty cool stuff you can do just to take this in a lot of different directions, create some new and different applications for it. So, for example, in a larger size, maybe like a 16 or so, you know, maybe if you played with the colors a little bit, this could certainly pass for a PMD or even a small stone. And up at the thorax, you could add some tungsten beads in there, make it a nice heavy weighted version. Or sort of on the flip side of that, you could add some mercury glass beads, create like a nice sort of emerging air bubble effect. That's cool as well. And that just goes to show you how this fly can be fished both deep as well as up on the surface, in the surface film, sort of like an emerger. So speaking of emergers, you could replace the wing case and legs completely and sort of dub the thorax and come in there with a CDC loop wing. That's cool as well. Make it like a dedicated emerger. So yeah, just a lot of creative opportunities and a lot of cool things you can do with this. So yeah, guys, I believe that is all I have for you today. So as always, thank you all so much for watching. Feel free to come into the shop. We want to answer your questions, get you set up with these materials, and yeah, have a great day. We will see you in the next one.